It is time
Okay.
for a review of The Craft Legacy, the sequel to The Craft. And it's not a spoiler because it's in the trailer. You watch the trailer and you see the Polaroid of Nancy from the first film for Rosa Balk's character. So this movie, though, still does follow some of the framework of that 1996 film, specifically with Cailee Spaeny's character, Lily, being new to town. And she doesn't really fit in at school. She's getting picked on and bullied quite a bit. And she winds up becoming a member of this group of friends who practices witchcraft, and they need a fourth to complete their coven. So they adopt her into that, and the four of them practice witchcraft together. That is the general premise of the movie. I will say one of my absolute favorite parts of this movie is what I liked about the first film. I liked all the time we spent with the four of them. I like watching female friendship and how they support each other. And that was probably one of the big things that I think Zoe Lister-Jones changed in her Craft sequel that I really appreciated. I liked seeing them all support each other and want the best for each other rather than there wasn't any girl-on-girl backstabbing this time around. And I think that leaned into what she was trying to focus on for the better. But I think what she was trying to focus on, like the two things wound up being at odds for me a little bit. It had two things it was focusing on. And there were times where one served the other. And then there were other times where one took away from the other. Is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think so. I watched the first Craft for the first time right before I watched Craft Legacy. Mm-hmm. So I went in doing both, and I don't find the first Craft empowering by any means. It's literally about them infighting. The whole movie is about these girls going at it. It's not I don't see it as a girl gang flick. It's a witch flick, but they're backstabbing each other the whole time. It doesn't end with them coming back together. It ends with them at odds still. So I agree with you. The thing that has changed the most here is that we now have the Craft Legacy, which goes into the idea that it is now girls against the patriarchy. Like it has changed the idea of the infighting and just the things that happen all the time, but then turning against each other for some reason because it'd be more entertaining if they fought one another with special powers. In the new one, where it is straight up just a patriarchal fight, they introduce that idea. The main villain is masculinity, and you know, I think it goes a little bit of the Black Christmas route, and like that's how they position it. They position the film as we're going to tell this story. We're going to do it from the perspective that we want to perspective now, and I think it works better in ways than the previous one because we actually get a collective whole. But at the same time, it's kind of bland. Like I love the style of the first one. Like the 90s are like alive in that movie, and this one's kind of just like kind of wafer thin in style.
All right, you kind of dug more into plot than I did, and I think the way you described it is fair. But I will.
I was gonna say I didn't name names. I didn't do anything.
I don't think you spoiled anything, but it gives me a little more room to play with. But the first thing is, I don't think the antagonist in this is masculinity. I think it's toxic masculinity, and I think it's toxic masculinity not only directed at the female characters, but also where the one individual that basically embodies that idea is also inflicting pain and struggle on the other men in his life too. And I was glad that that element was represented in the movie. But going back to what you said about the group of friends here is, you know how I was saying in one sense it worked really well, in one sense it didn't. So I liked the idea that there wasn't that much infighting and that it was more about the four of them being supportive of each other in order to overcome the evil that they face and stick together. And the Coven increases in power when they're together. I thought all of that played really well against the evil force that they're dealing with. But on the other hand, I felt that by not having, here's where I'm afraid to spoil anything now, by not having the certain occurrences happen in the movie that spark the infighting, we learn less about all four of the members of the Coven, and I missed that part of it. Did I do that right? Did I say that right?
I think that plays into this, like my style comments, because it does feel surface value where the Craft really gets into the elements of witchcraft, and it starts like really going deep into the dark magic and all these things. You get those great scenes of bugs and stuff like protruding or like just they're spilling through the bathroom grate and stuff like that. It has fun with the magic, where this one is kind of light on that stuff. It's light on a lot of the more fantasy elements. It's light on the like it doesn't feel like a full immersion. Where I'm not saying the craft like is spectacular by any means, but I didn't feel pulled in by the craft legacy. And it's great, like gateway horror in a way. Like I'm glad we're gearing horror towards younger audiences. This is great. Like I'm not going to say the girls talked wrong or anything like that, because I don't speak in that generational tone. And I saw there's some horror people that I follow that like are in that generation that like they nailed it. Like this dialogue is spot on. This is how we talk. So like kudos in that area. I'm just not into the overall package, I think.
All right. I feel like I wasn't engaged as much, and I feel like the reason for that was what I was basically just saying, was that I don't think there was enough of the four of them. I wanted to spend all the time in the world with them. I understand why other characters needed screen time, but maybe this also speaks to my expectations going into it, but I wanted a Coven movie, and that isn't entirely what this is. And even though I didn't love the movie, I'm hoping that they get a sequel, because I would like to know more about the other three characters. And I thought the four of them were pretty solid. We do spend a lot of time with Cailee Spaeny, who I thought was pretty good in the movie. She didn't blow me away as much as she's done in I really liked what she did in On the Basis of Sex, where I think she stood out in a lot of scenes. I don't see that happen as much here, but the other three I thought were great. I wanted more of Zoe Luna. I feel like her character needed a little more. I thought Lovie Simone was great, but Gideon Adlin, again, was the one who I think had the most pop to her that really kept catching my eyes. The individual that I thought ran away with this movie, though, I hope I pronounce his name right. I can't believe I'm shouting out a male actor in a craft movie. That feels very surprising to me. Nicholas, oh man, Galitzine. He is so good. I cannot believe what they did with the character of Timmy and how well it worked for me. And I am tempted to say it speaks to his ability as an actor more than how that's worked into the script. He's so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of addressing of ideas that are important, and I'm glad they went that route versus the craft that kind of just went. They addressed very big problems at the time, and they did it in a way that was aggressive and abrasive, and that's just how they wanted to play it. That was an aggressive movie, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but I really like how the craft legacy, with the Timmy character specifically, you've taken the Chris he was Chris in the first movie, right? The one that gets love struck the whole time. It's Skeet Ulrich's character. Yeah. It's Skeet's character in the first one, and he's just the lovesick, obsessed. I'm like the little dog coming behind you, and that's his whole shtick. But the Timmy character here, which is the one that is possessed, we'll call it, or under the spell. There's a lot more to dig into there. There's a lot more to analyze, and you have a character who's going through it. On the outside, they are the macho bro stereotype that you hate, but then they're under the spell, and the inside is so much more complicated. And I think that's great. But just to your other points too, there's a pivotal moment where the gang stops doing magic and they have their fight, and it feels kind of unearned, because these are characters that we didn't really we weren't fully invested in yet. But then that you get to their big breakup, and you're kind of wait, what? They're already at that point? How did we get there? So I had issues with that.
I have a lot to say about that, but I feel like it's got to stay for stick to a spoiler.
To get into it, that would be more spoiler territory.
We'll get there. In the meantime, I'm going to give this one 3 Deweys out of 5 on the Dewey Destin movie scale. I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think there are some elements in it that are noticeably weak, but the fact that the movie left me wanting more of the story, and the fact that even though I think that the 4 members of the Coven as a group of friends are a little underserved based on what Zoe Lister-Jones is trying to accomplish in the movie, I don't necessarily think that plays great for this film, but there's enough good in it that made me want another one. And I think that probably speaks to the performances more so than anything. I like this group. I want to see more of them, and I want to see more of what she tees up for a potential third film.
I'd watch another one. I think I'm going to land 2.5 again, though, because the more I actually I was ready to do a 3 and say all right, cool. But the more we talked about it, I'm just kind of, it's just, again, to me, it's like the same product. It's just basic in a way, and I just wanted something more. I wanted that to get more love from Blumhouse, honestly, and I'm not talking about marketing. I'm talking about like actual budget, and like, I know the Blumhouse mentality. It's just you have a certain budget.
The budget issue here. Like, I think Zoe made the most of everything that she had, and there was nothing.
No, I agree. I agree that she made the most. I wanted her to have more, though. I think she deserved more than what she got to actually do that movie, and I would have loved to see it. I don't know. I wanted more.
I don't necessarily think that more money or more resources would have changed anything.